name is Rob Lienti. I'm a sales development manager for EFI, Fiery Business Unit. And the reason we're here today is I want to review with you a solution that we have called Fiery JobFlow. It's a browser-based solution that integrates all the cool workflow automations of the Fiery system with impose, server presets, along with another product called PitStop Professional that allows us to create these different automated workflows to take care of the problems that a traditional printer like yourself runs into day in and day out with files coming in from customers, repeat work, things that you like to automate to be able to kind of increase your productivity in the shop by reducing your labor costs, your waste costs, rework problems when jobs aren't set up properly and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go through a bunch of different scenarios that I've run into when I'm out talking to customers regarding the problems they have. And 95% of these problems, I can tell you, you'll find in every print shop much like yours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up JobFlow, and we really won't even look at the solution so much as we're going to look at the finished results. But real quickly, let's go look at some examples of some problems that we fixed with JobFlow. So the first one here, I'm going to bring up a calendar, okay? So a lot of times you'll get a file from your customers, okay, and they're going to want this thing trimmed with, you know, a full bleed with no white borders around the edges, and your customers will send these files to you and it has no bleed. And normally what you have to do is you have to get your graphic designer to go in there and either enlarge the file a little bit so you have some bleed on the edges, or you might go in there and try to just finagle the file in a way that takes a lot of time and effort from your graphic artist, okay, who should be working on, you know, more profitable jobs. From there, in this example, I'm going to show you how we can add bleed to this file. Okay, we're going to actually impose it so we can actually print it out in the digital press as well as add crop marks to it so you can see exactly where it's going to be cut. And we can do that simply by dropping files, okay, in the JobFlow folders. Okay, so if I come here and I grab that file we were just looking at, and we'll drop it in this folder, it's going to disappear. It's much like a hot folder. And what's going to happen is Fiery JobFlow is going to pick it up, as you can see here, and it's going to start processing it. Okay, so what's happening in the background without us even touching the file is it's going to convert it to a PDF if it needs to. We're generating bleed, okay, on the file. We're then throwing it into Fiery Impose to do the imposition and do the crop marks. And then we're throwing it right down to Fiery Command Workstation where it's selecting the proper paper as well as the folding piece of it as well as the stapling piece of it. So if we go look at this finished job here, okay, I'll open it up real quick. You can see that that file, we literally, with one click of a button, we're dropping the file in a folder, we're actually able to add the crop marks, add the bleed to the edge, okay, put our trim marks where they need to show the finished trim size, and lay it out in position for the Fiery, okay? Hands-off automation. And if we go to the Fiery, you'll see the job is in here. It's selected the proper workflow. So again, it's pulling the proper paper, it's doing the duplexing, it's doing the folding, and it's doing the stapling. And in some cases, it could do the 3-knife trim as well. So that's one example of what we can do with Fiery JobFlow. We can fix bleeds. Another one that a lot of people run into in printers, and this will ring true with you, you'll get a file from a customer, and the cover page is in letter spread, 8.5 by 11. The internal guts is laid out printer spread, okay? And then the back page, again, is laid out in 8.5 by 11. So again, it's one of these scenarios you've got to take it into InDesign or Illustrator, and you've got to manually take this thing apart and then do the reorganization to lay it out for imposition. So again, with Fiery JobFlow, we'll just go grab that folder. We'll go grab that file. We'll copy it and paste it into that folder. And again, Fiery JobFlow will just spit right through. It'll automatically find the pages that are 8.5 or wider than 8.5 by 11, split them in half, reorganize them, impose it, and again, throw it down to the Fiery, or then we can start printing. So again, we'll go take a look at the end result. Another second for it to process. So just like that, again, you can see we were able to take the front and back page, do the imposition, lay it all out for printing. And also, by the way, you can also see I removed the crop marks that were on it as well. Okay. Some other things we can do with JobFlow. If you do a lot of work where you're doing a lot of imposition with single-sided and double-sided types of jobs mixed together, okay, we have the ability to do some real rules-based routing for those types of scenarios. So I'll give you an example here. I have a customer that does about 100 what we call rack cards, okay, for a hospital. So you can see here, I've got a rack card that's laid out. It's a 2-page document, okay. I have another one that, again, is a single-side document, okay. Another one that's a single side, another one that's a double side, okay. So when you're doing, 50 to 100 of these a day, the last thing you want to do is go in there and figure out which ones are single-sided and double-sided, okay, when you lay them out. So what we can do is, again, we can drop those types of files into a folder. JobFlow will go in, will analyze the file itself and see if it's 1 page or 2, and based off of that, it'll do the imposition, but then it will send it to the appropriate workflow where duplexing is selected, okay, on the ones that are double-sided, where the single-sided ones, it's going to show as a single-sided setup for the server preset. By doing that, you're reducing your cost of clicks, okay, where you're doing backup on a job that doesn't have anything on the second side. So once this is all processed through JobFlow, we'll just go over to the Fiery, and you'll see they'll start populating in here. This one already hit it, where a 1-page job pulls a single-sided workflow, and the 2-page job pulls a double-sided workflow. And also take notice here, I also set a workflow up that's actually going to populate the number of copies that are required to make my sets of 500 when I cut down the job for pieces. So just like that, drop the files in a folder. They can come over here and start printing. Or if it's inside the workflow, I could have the Fiery automatically start printing. It could literally be a hands-off operation for users that are doing a lot of jobs like that. So another example of something I want to show you is the ability, when we start talking about business cards, to start fixing various types of business cards that come into a shop. So what I mean by that, and this example will hit home for you being a printer. Again, if I'm a job shop, I get all kinds of people sending me cards in all kinds of different formats. Some are single-sided, some are double-sided. Some have bleed, some don't have bleed. Some are portrait, some are landscape. Some they might send down, okay, in some of these examples here, where they'll have color bars on them, and they'll have crop marks on them, okay, with an oddball size, right? We'll have other ones where, let me show you an example, they'll send it on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in the center of a document, right?
Those are my favorite.
Okay. Exactly. We'll have one in the center of a document that's rotated this direction. So what ends up having to happen is your graphic designer has to go in here and fix all these as, one-offs. But with Fiery JobFlow, we have automation that can literally identify these all as business cards. Again, we drop them into a folder or we drag them into the browser, and JobFlow will literally fix this all on the fly, okay? So let's kind of take a look at an example of what it's doing. So in this example here, it's detecting if it was an 8.5 by 11 sheet, okay? If it fails, which it did, it's going to now move it to this new workflow, and it's going to check to see if it's 2 pages, right? If it sees that it's 2 pages, it's going to then move it to the double-sided business card workflow. It's going to create all the proper rotation for the layout. It's going to remove any printer marks. It's going to change it to a business card side. It's going to generate bleed. It's going to impose it, and then it's going to throw it over to a folder or to the Fiery where it's going to select the proper paper and the proper amount of copies or prints for the job. So that's just another example of some things that you can do with Fiery JobFlow. We'll look at some results here in a second.
Yeah, each of those jobs can take 15 minutes or 20 minutes to get it straight in prepress.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And without having to do it, we can just, again, let JobFlow do it itself without even touching them. So here's an example, the first one that came in. So in this example here, we've laid it out. It's a portrait job, so it didn't have to rotate it. Here's another card that came in. This one here was a landscape job, so again, it knew how to rotate it appropriately, put the crop marks on it. See a couple more here. Here's again a double-sided one. Laid out appropriately. Everything done hands off without the user having to touch the files. You'll see here, since I set this up for 500 pieces, so you got your 24 up times 21 copies. Mm-hmm. Here you can see these are single-sided, these are double-sided, all figured out, all different types of cards, all set up, ready to go. Again, we can fix these quickly without even taking a look at them. So like an example here, here's the one that had all the crop marks and had the color bars on it. Able to remove it on the fly, resize it, and set it up without any user interaction, just like so.
Beautiful.
We do also have automation with various types of offline cutter, slicer, creasers. So again, we have the ability to take those types of jobs, okay, and we can drop those into folders, and it will then, again, look at the file itself, and based off of what it sees in the file, it'll route it to the appropriate workflow to lay it out properly. So in this example here, I have a ticket. It'll come in. It'll check first to see if the job is a menu. If it isn't, it will continue down the list, okay? Is it a ticket job? If it is, it'll then move it to my ticket workflow to lay it out appropriately, where it will then put the barcode, okay, which is built into the Fiery for the offline finishing device to read. So when it hits the offline finishing device, it will actually pull that program up, adjust all the knives, okay, and the scoring devices inside that offline finishing device to do the cutting. So again, hands-off automation. You don't have to touch the file and take a look at what it is. It will automatically figure out itself where it needs to route it to.
Well, that's something I haven't seen before, that you have one workflow for all your finishing needs. Yeah.
Yep. And real quick here, since this error is out here, just to point this out, this is by default. What's happening here is JobFlow's smart enough to know that if it finds a file that's coming in that doesn't meet the criteria of the workflow, it'll actually throw it into an error queue, save the job off to the side, and then send an email out to somebody in administration to take a look at it. So now if we look at that ticket for an example, you're going to see that we were able to pull this up with the number 15 to pull this in for this finishing device, right? We go look at this business card. Again, we're pulling in a different number with the different indicators specifically for that. So again, hands-off, rules-based routing based off of the file size or the parameters that you set up inside of Fiery JobFlow. So those are some of the things that we see day in and day out, you know, in print shops, you know, every time I visit. And these are the areas that, you know, get printers like yourself excited, because right away you can start, you know, seeing labor costs go down and throughput go up through the machine. So your machines aren't waiting for prepress or your graphic designers to get the job done. You can drop the file in a folder and just start getting these jobs out more quickly and keep the press running, which is, where you're making your money. So, Any other questions?
So I see that jobs waiting for approval. Can you explain how to, can I get my customers approved jobs, or some other person in the shop approved jobs?
Sure. So let's look at that as an example. So here's the calendar again, but it's one page. So in this example here, I want to add bleed to it, like we talked about earlier. I want to add crop marks, but I also want to turn it to grayscale. So I want to actually change the look of the file, okay? But before I print it, I'm going to have my customer approve it. So again, I can just copy that into my workflow, let JobFlow go do its thing, okay? But before we send it to wherever we need to send it, we need to approve it. So what will happen is JobFlow will stop here, and it will send an email out to the approver to make sure that they approve this job before we move it further, okay? So in this case here, we'll just let this do its thing. I'm going to open up my Google Mail, and what will happen here is in a moment, I'm going to end up getting a email from Fiery JobFlow. I'm in here. There's my newest one that just came in a minute ago right here. And you're going to see down here, it's going to ask me to view the file and approve it. So here, it's going to ask me to review the job content. If I click on that, it's literally going to open up a PDF file of the finished job before we print it. This is all through Dropbox because I am outside the firewall. So again, we can send this internally or we can send this externally. So the customer will be able to look at it. Oh, there's the job. There's the crop marks, right? Yep, we got the bleed in it. It looks good. They come here and hit approve job. And if we go back to JobFlow, like so, you're going to see the job is still waiting for approval, and it will disappear here in a second and then just drop into my finished queue. So literally, it's hands off for the operator. There it goes. It's now processing it, and it's finished. So now it's sent it to where it needed to be sent, and my job's now in the finished area.
Perfect.
So the long and short of it, that is the process on being able to do approvals for customers. Well, since you've asked, I can show one more. This is a script, but this is actually pretty powerful as well. And this is the one I was talking about that has a good story behind it. So one other item I want to show you is this example here, what we can do with JobFlow. I've shown you everything that comes standard with JobFlow, but we also have the ability to do scripting, okay, which really gives an additional level of power. So if there's something that's just so far outside the realm of the tools that we have within JobFlow, we can write customized scripts and pull those in at any time to do really unique things to a file, okay? So in this example here, I had a company that did medical record billing, okay? And what they did was they would be printing out scanned in hard copy of patients' records, okay? And they could be of varying lengths. Some might be 3 pages, some might be 5, some might be 10, whatever. And when they printed these out in one big batch, they had 4 girls, okay, that they hired that would take the prints off the machine and manually go through and find where each new customer record started and each customer record ended, and then manually staple the corner to put it in a packet. Okay, so they have 4 people doing this, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. So what we did is with Fiery JobFlow, we actually took a document similar to this, it's a demo file, where we could indicate when the first record started by something that's hidden in the file. Okay, I'll just keep it simple. And from there, with the Fiery, again, we'll just drop this into a folder. I'll show you the end result. We could then read that information, and from the script, we could populate the Fiery job properties, okay, to indicate where each customer record started using mixed media finishing, and then turn the staple on so it would literally separate varying lengths of records without any interaction by the 4 girls that would sit around the table. The savings was $100,000 a year in salary, and the funny thing about it was the customer never even came to sell the equipment. We showed them a video of how it would work, and they bought it sight unseen because they saw the value of it, just like that. So if we go here to the Fiery and go look at the job properties, what you'll see is underneath media, we automatically populate the chapter starts based off what we read in the file. We define each section as a chapter finishing set. So again, page 1 through 5, then it would staple, 6 through 12 staple, 13 through 16 staple, so on and so forth. And again, in the finishing area here, top left staples turned on. It was pretty much a hands-off operation. Drop the file in the folder, let the machine run. So that's just a real simple way of doing scripting with Fiery JobFlow that, brought so much value to this customer.